Good evening. Welcome to Town Hall. It is Thursday, April 14th, about 7 p.m. This is a meeting to host a public hearing relative to the town's budget. First order of business is the pledge to the flag. Next on the agenda is a land acknowledgement statement, which I will read. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land in which the town is now located. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe whose land and water we benefit from today. Next is the roll call. If you could, Susan.
Council President McEntee.
Here.
Councilwoman Bergner.
Here.
Councilwoman Kelso. Councilwoman Rose.
Here.
Council Vice President Collins is absent at the moment.
Thank you. All right, that's going to bring us to item 4, public hearing. A public hearing relative to the town council's preliminary budget for the fiscal year 22-23 as adopted on March 21, 22. This time I'm going to hand it over to Terry Murphy, the town manager, for a presentation.
Good evening, members of the council, members of the school committee, and school administration. Thank you for joining us this evening. We will start right off the bat with going into a little recap of the budget process and how we got here today. At this point in the budget process, we are at the public hearing portion, and 2 public hearings are required before April 18th each year. We have one this evening. We also have one for next Monday, April 18th at 7 p.m. To give the public an opportunity to be heard with regard to the budget. This is per the town charter, and once the public hearings are done, we go into the remainder of the budget calendar, which includes the consideration of petitions and adoption of the final budget. That is scheduled for Monday, April 25th, which is a regular town council meeting. And then by Thursday, May 12th at 4 p.m., that is the deadline for submissions for final petitions for a budget referendum. The 16th is the deadline for petition signatures. And then June 7th, if there were to be a referendum, it would be on that day. And then June 15th would be the setting the tax rate. So we are now in the final kind of stage of the budget process. Just to back up a bit, I would just call your attention to the original budget as proposed by the town manager and submitted on March 1st to the town council. It included a proposed property tax levy of $75,745,061. That's a 2.2% increase over the previous year's budget, and a proposed tax rate of $11.02. Since that time, on March 21st was the preliminary budget adoption meeting with the town council, and at that time the council considered a number of options for reducing the budget, and there was the following detail is provided here with regard to how the council reduced the budget from the proposed $11.02 tax rate down to a tax rate of $10.97, and it included reductions in health care, reductions in OPEB, the reduction in the council contingency, debt service fund allocation, and the elimination of the cost of the mobile app. And that totaled $344,171, which brought the increase over fiscal year 21-22 down to 1.79% for a tax rate of $10.97. The actual warrant that was advertised in the paper this week and is also available for reference on the table. As people came in, you may have grabbed the warrant. This is the overall kind of high-level view of the budget for FY 22-23 as adopted preliminarily by the council on March 21st. You will see that the tax rate is $10.97. That's the preliminary budget adoption, and it reflects a property tax levy increase of $1,328,481. I would note that the school department is level funded for maintenance of effort. This will be the third year at that rate for the school department. And another point of information is the tax rate is down from $14.45 a thousand from the current year due to the full property revaluation that the town underwent this year, and it's closing up within the next month. A high-level look at all funds involved in the town operations. That includes the school fund, the general fund, and then a number of enterprise funds and recreation department funds for a total municipal program budget for FY 2023 of $102,352,828. Again, these tables are all in the warrant that was posted and advertised. On the general fund side, this is the municipal operation, and it is broken out by municipal functions. As you can see here, the total general fund operating budget for 2023 is $29,309,829. The revenue statement on the general funds side, primarily the revenue is property taxes, among others, state aid, licenses and fees, department revenues, investment income, fund balance transfer, and school department transfers to equal $29,309,829. On the school side, the school department budget is $61,731,873. And you can see here in the revenue statement for the school fund, the level funding from property taxes of $55,994,773, and then the multiple other sources of revenue that the school department receives. I'll run through the other funds that are also budgeted. These are relatively basic in terms of what's displayed here. The Peacedale office building is a self-sustaining fund and shows an operating budget of $90,867. It's projected that revenues will be received in the amount of $103,322. Peacedale office building has lease rooms, and there's also recreation programming that goes on within that building. The Senior Services Program has a budget of $701,685. That's up from the previous year. There is an uptick with some of the program budgets because they are starting to get back on track with level of activity and revenue and expenditures for those programs. The general fund transfer for proposed, or actually approved with the preliminary budget, is $536,965. Those are tax dollars that go towards the senior program. The Neighborhood Guild is another recreation facility. This is self-sustaining through the Guild trust funds. And for FY 2023, you see the budget, operating budget is $714,583. There are no tax dollars associated with the operation of the Neighborhood Guild. The Community Recreation Center has a budget of $613,447. There is an operating general fund transfer approved of $379,235 for the Community Recreation Center. The Debt Service Fund shows a adopted budget of $2,031,152. And you can see that the revenue statement reflects state aid, an operating transfer of $1,661,693. That is a reduction of the debt service that was reflected in the preliminary budget adoption. And then we have the utility funds, the Water Enterprise Fund, which is self-sustaining, Wastewater Enterprise Fund, again, self-sustaining. These are operated and managed through the Public Services Department. Solid Waste Enterprise Fund as well, proposed at $1,002,971. And that takes us to the final, that encompasses all funds proposed for 2023. What I'd like to show next is general fund reduction considerations at the March 21st preliminary adoption of the budget. Council requested that we look at other possible reductions in order to consider potential reduction further for the budget. In doing so, Council was presented with a memorandum after the department heads came back with reports that showed what reductions might be possible. And if you recall, in the presentation on March 21st, there were a number of options. What the council was looking for was potentially reaching that $120,208 that was part of the unassigned fund balance that would have been transferred, and whether or not there were other alternative ways to get to that amount. In doing so, staff developed a list of line items for potential reduction, and in the memorandum to the council, I indicate there are really two categories for those reductions. There's a minimal impact line, and then there is a total reflective of service impact. And within that memorandum, you can see that 56,000, we reached $120,208, which would have been the number in order to reduce the tax rate to $10.95. In that, there's two amounts. $56,600 is the minimum impact amount, and you can see that under option 3A on the slide. The other line item reductions would result in some impact to services, as noted in my memorandum. Most of those reflect either supplies, materials that would impact either building or facility maintenance or infrastructure maintenance, as well as education and training lines for items like staff training, certification, development for staff. And so we put those under impact to services because we do believe that that would have some impact overall on how the municipal operation is provided in terms of services. So what you see on the screen is option 3 is the established budget. Those were the reductions that were already approved in the preliminary budget. You see option 3A, which includes a $56,600 reduction of minimal impact items, which would reduce the percentage increase from 1.79% to 1.72%, and it would drop the tax rate by a penny to $10.96 a thousand. Option 4, which was one of the original presented options on March 21st, you see the increase in the unassigned fund balance transfer. That was the amount we were trying to get to without actually using the unassigned fund balance. Option 4A reflects both the minimal impact reductions and the reductions that would have some impact to services, which would total the $120,208. That would also get the tax rate to $10.95 per thousand, and it would drop the increase to 1.63%. And then the option 4B, that reflects the minimal impact and a portion of the unassigned fund balance transfer to be made to equal the same tax rate of $10.95 per thousand. So there are actually 5 options if you include option 5, which would have a major impact on services, but essentially 3A through 4B would provide council with some considerations for further reductions.
Thank you, Terry. Any questions from the members at this time for the manager? Any questions from school committee members? All right, at this time, we're going to open it up to the public. We'd like to hear from you. We just ask that you identify yourself when you come up and speak, and we'd like to limit you to 5 minutes just to give everyone else in here an opportunity to speak. We'll allow you to come up and speak again if that's not enough time to suffice for what you want to say, so come on up.
Yeah, I haven't been attending the, up till now, the budget hearings, and I only have a question here on, my name is
If you could
Paul
just
Follett. I live
pull
on,
the microphone closer to you so we can hear you.
most people.
Oh, can you state your name for the record as well?
Sure. Paul Follett. I live on Half Moon Trail up on Indian Lake. And I just have one kind of general question here is, I see that basically the schools are level funded. I'm not sure what that means other than the funds are the same, have been the same over the past 3 years. I'm not sure what brought that protocol. But when you take that out and you look at the overall, revenue expenditures of the town, it looks like the general fund, ex the school funds, has gone up like 7%, if my math is right. And that seemed like a significant increase for those funds for the year. So that's my question. With level funded schools, why did we see a 7% increase? And it looked like it's across the board. I couldn't pick out a single item that was, truly exceptional. They all seem to be running in that general range. My thought is that's a trend that, maybe there's a reason for it, but the trend should be 2 to 3% over the past year, I would think. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll direct the detail of the question over to the town manager.
Yes, thank you for that question, Mr. Follett. One of the major impacts of the FY22-23 budget has to do with the bringing on board a third full shift of EMS staff, which will be a 6-month funding. They'll start in January of 2023, and that is a major increase for the municipal operating budget. That, along with contractual obligations, make up for the major increase in the municipal budget. Otherwise, most departmental budgets are relatively flat. That is the major increase. We have a couple of other part-time positions that are also being brought on board. I hope that answers your question.
Anyone else? Feel free to just come on up.
Hi, Roland Benjamin. Similar comments as I made before. Just, we're talking about $2 million town increase in spending and a $3 to $4 million school increase in spending, notwithstanding the level funding of from the property tax levy. That's a big jump at a time when a lot of people have felt a lot of pain. So. But we can talk about the revenue all day long. This is a significant spending increase across both sides of the town government. We got extra money from federal government, from ARPA, from all these different things that's just making up the difference. And we're choosing to spend it on either keeping everything the same or expanding some programs rather than shoring up what we have. I would like to... We hear the phrase maintenance of effort constantly, and we have one version of it which is same as last year, but then a legal version of it, which is in the law, is same as last year prorated for the number of students. If we were to prorate for the number of students over the last 5 years, we would be at a total spend of $55 million in our school district. We're actually proposing this year a $68 million total spend. That's what 4 or 5 years of calling something level funding looks like. It's inflating faster than just about any other thing in our economy over the last 5 years. And as long as we keep calling it maintenance of effort, it kind of blurs the image of what's really happening. We have new spending. We were at $21,000 a student in 2018, 2019. We're going to be pushing $28,000 per student now. I don't really need an answer. You know where I say the same things all the time, but that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Feel free to just come on up. First come, first serve.
Good evening. My name is Doral Beasley. The fourth sentence in the job description that was for the new superintendent's position that was posted on the internet. The fourth sentence reads as such: "We are looking for someone who is willing to make a long-term commitment in leading a school district with established record of educational excellence and fiscal prudence." You guys okayed that verbiage. Educational excellence and fiscal prudence. When I read that sentence, my head almost exploded. We have neither of those here. I did a comparison of the 36 top school districts in Massachusetts and then the 36 K-12 school districts in Rhode Island. The assessment testing of this past year, 2021. The school district compares itself continuously to the Rhode Island state average. There are 218 school districts in Massachusetts, 36 here, 254 total. The Rhode Island state average came in at number 234. There were only 2 Rhode Island school districts that made the top 25%. That was Barrington and East Greenwich. There were no Rhode Island school districts in the second quarter. South Kingstown came in at number 151, so we're in the third quartile. That would puts us in the bottom 40% of school districts in the 2 states. And if this school district was in Massachusetts, we'd be in the bottom 30%. The MCAS exam and the RICAS are the exact same test. And the other test we're talking about is the SAT, so it's the same test. But here in South Kingstown, we have the second highest cost per student in the state. We have the second smallest class students per classroom. In East Greenwich, this fall, when the schools open up, East Greenwich and South Kingstown, we're going to have exactly the same amount of children, students in the district. Our budget's $69 million, and theirs is $45. So I go back to that statement in the fiscal prudence. Where is it? Fiscal prudence? What are we getting for all that money? Do we have 5-star schools? 4-star schools? We got 1. What you've been doing for the last 3 years by keeping the tax rate level has been smoke and mirrors, because the people, you make the taxpayers think, oh, gee, they're doing us a favor. You're not doing us a favor. Because the school budget should have been reduced each one of those years by a percentage because we're losing students year after year after year, now for 21 years in a row. 21 years in a row. In 2014, we had one employee for every 6.8 students. One employee, 6.8 students. Now we have one employee for every 5.7 students. So you say this, well, it doesn't sound like a lot, right? It's a difference of about 75 to 80 FTEs, full-time people. We have the workforce in this school district to support 3,300 students, not 26. I'll come back if
Well,
nobody...
that brings you past 5 minutes. If you could just wrap it up. You can certainly come back again after someone speaks.
Yeah, I'm good for now.
Jim O'Neill, Matunic. I guess I bring this up quite a bit over the last couple of years, but I was on the council for 14 years. I still get, frankly, hundreds of calls every season when budgets come due. The most difficult thing that I've got to explain to folks is currently, before these changes slowly coming into maturity here, is running the operating system here at 60% capacity. That one you cannot explain away. Having been involved with the Broad Rock opening years ago, I always used a couple of numbers to look at the future. And at that time, our largest school population was 4,383 kids. And at that time, we had 519 FTEs. And just to be very liberal using today's numbers, 2,700 total kids. I know it's lower than that. So what should X be? Number of FTEs. If you cross multiply, you'll find that 4,383X divided into 1,401,300 comes out to 320 personnel FTE. 320. We're currently 450, I was told back in December, roughly 449, 450. 320. Think about that. That's numbers so frightening. If you add up this year's salary and benefits recommended, 47,300,000, just to round things out here. And if you look at that number, and you work back to the 320 that we could on a pro-rate basis, that puts our budget at $13.6 million on an equalized basis over what it should be. $13.6 million. Now, we're a town that's always been very generous. We've always given premiums to our education system, and that's understandable. But $13.6 million is just outrageous that we have not at all followed the fall of students. Not at all. Matter of fact, the last 12 years in this town, we show profits every year. Isn't that a funny word to use? Profits every year in the school budget. Every year. Including the big year, Mrs. Stringfellow's budget back in fiscal year 2020. And even with the infamous 1.75% increase, they got $3 million more because that's how many people they had to lay off. Over 31 folks. 31 folks. So nothing matches here. Nothing makes sense. If you add it up, try to put it all together. Capacity, per student, per FD, per this, per that. So anyway, but someday, I wish I could go back to school and become a CPA, but something's very wrong here. We're totally out of matched. I also bring up all the time here about the state funding formula. The high point was $10.6 million back in 2009-10. Where are we now? 4.8 million, 4.9 million? And I know we've had our reps argue on this transportation basis, how much more costly it is for rural communities like this. But what's most upsetting is to see what North Kingstown, well, they're a little like us, they're getting almost $12 million from the state. Westerly, the highest residential property values in the state of Rhode Island, getting $8.5, almost $9 million now from the state of Rhode Island. Barrington, $6.5 million. They've held steady with their population over the years. They're still running 3,400. So just something is wrong here. Why in the world is North Kingstown, Westerly, and I can bring up other towns? It just seems that we're not fighting that battle at the State House. There's something that RIDE uses that we're just not, well, we don't have their attention. We don't have what I feel is something very wrong. We really should be at that $6.5 to $8 million range for state funding. I'll forget about, leave transportation out of it, but something's very wrong here. And my last question, maybe to the school committee or a financial person here. Too much over the last 10 years I've found almost $3 million of the undesignated fund balance being spent on capital projects, or capital, and it's got other funny words in there. But being a student of Steve Alfred, who was here forever, and I guess I was tutored by him a little bit, but the undesignated fund balance was always supposed to be operating revenues that were unused. That was his definition. So I don't understand why our undesignated balance is $2 to $3 million higher, because I believe we've used too much of that for capital expenditures when they should have been absolutely in the savings bank account for the citizens of this town, who are really paying an incredible amount of money towards our education system. So hopefully somebody might do the accounting here and figure out why there's such a range of questions here as to what the taxpayers should be paying. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Anyone else? Feel free to just come up right to the microphone.
Over the last 20 years, the average cost of living increase for the United States is 2%. Interestingly, it's just the cost of living adjustments for Social Security over the same period of time, also 2% a year. But over those 21, 22 years, the average increase in compensation for employees in our school district was 4%. I mentioned this before at another recent town council meeting, but if you're living on a fixed income, if you, there was the largest increase, and I don't know, over 20 years for Social Security was this year, 5.9%. So it worked out, the average nationwide came out to $92 a month. So everybody was getting the $92, the average was getting $92 a month. Except they weren't, because the first 22 was the increase to Medicare Part B, so now you're down to $70 a month. The last month, the inflation rate was 7% higher than last year, and this month it's, in March it was 8.5. So in February, if somebody got $1,000 from Social Security, they broke even. This month they were $15 in the hole. There are a lot of people in this town that live on a fixed income. I don't see anything that's budget that's helping them out. Besides the fact that since I'm the tax assessor for the Kingston Fire District, I know that at least 2/3 of the properties in our district, the valuations went up and their taxes are going to go up. Now, remember when I said that we have a $69 million school budget and East Greenwich has 45. Now, after you adjust out the fact that we have a higher transportation cost here, the differential between the two is only about $19 million. Now, you say, oh, gee, that's only $19 million. Okay. The first four of that 19 is the money that we send out of this district to other school districts for students that go to other schools or high schools and there's charter schools. That's $4 million a year. So now we're down to $15 million. So what is that $15 million? All that is, it's compensation. Now, we want to fix our schools, right? The buildings. I want to build a brand new high school. Actually, the taxpayers did you, all of you here, they did you a favor last year when they voted the $85 million bond down, because that wouldn't have fixed what we have, our problems. It wouldn't have come close to fixing it. To build a new high school and to fix our other 5 schools so that they'll last another 30 years, it's going to cost us almost $200 million. Now, you probably know that's a head-exploding kind of number, right? But remember, RIDE's paying 50% of that, and if Mr. Mazinger, or I'm not sure if I say his name right, he predicted that this next truncheon of bonding money to continue the fixing of the schools the state's going to put into a bond, that may go up to 55% that we'd be available to, because they're going to bring back the 5% for having a green building. They took that out late in the process last time, but they're putting back that in. So if we build a new high school, obviously it's going to be totally, green and energy efficient. So we could almost get 55%. But either way, that $100 million that at a 4% interest rate for 25 years, it's $6 million a year. Now, where's that money coming from? It's got to come from your budget. That money has to come out of your budget. You're not going to put that on the backs of the taxpayers with everything else, right? $69 million budget, and then you're going to put another $6 million on us? If we had 5-star schools, I wouldn't even be here. I would be at my grandson's baseball game tonight.
Doyle, you are past the 5 minutes again.
Okay,
You just give one more opportunity to others here.
Sure.
And you can come back up one more time.
all right.
If anyone here would like to speak for the first time or speak again, just feel free to come to the microphone. We'd like to hear from you. We encourage you to speak. Your thoughts are considered by us, so.
Yeah, I guess I got to pay more attention. And, the taxes don't bother me that much. I mean, basically, I'm not concerned about monthly payments. But I would say that you've been given some thoughtful commentary here. People who aren't angry, that people that aren't, they're just saying, hey, there's some mismanagement problems here. Mismanagement is listening to the backup one. Schools always bring out a lot of people, and there's always people in favor of better schools. Anybody who's got kids in school, it's more spending. They can't spend enough. It's a loud voice. And those people that are speaking and saying, hey, what are the results? What can we spend? You don't hear much from them. I heard some commentary here tonight that basically says that we're not paying attention. It's not that here people don't want to do their jobs, but we're not paying attention to good management practice. And I hope you're listening to that, you know, and I'm not sure how that gets to the taxpayers. You know, it's confusing if you don't pay some attention as a taxpayer. And with all the things that's going on in this world, it's very hard to follow town politics and town budgets. But please pay attention. Please recognize that good management, okay, is a necessary thing for everybody to practice. It's easy to spend money. It's easy to spend money. And East Greenwich has got some problems, too. They got $100 million they're going to be spending on schools. I lived in East Greenwich for a while. When they built the schools that they now say are defunct. So it all keeps going around. But we do need to compare ourselves to our other neighborhoods. We do need to pay attention, and we do need to exercise some good management. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim O'Neill again. Just one question. The increase of about $1,400,000 in services, does that represent any more kids leaving the district to other school districts? You have an increase of about $1.4 million here. And then services, usually the dollar amount that we pay. So can you tell me if that's a lot of money? That's like another 50, 60 kids if it's just children going to other districts, or maybe it's other part of the services budget. I know the services budget has quite a few items in it. I'm just trying to find out if those are also kids leaving our school district. Because last year...
Raquel, I'll direct that one to you.
210 total kids from our charter schools to Narragansett, Charahoe, Met, North Kingstown, etc.
Is the microphone on? So we do have slight increases in our tuition cost. The high school has been diligent and looking at students. We do have a trend that we talked about of students coming in district, which is a positive on the revenue side, but there is also a trend of students going to CTE programs. We're working diligently on that, and the high school is as well. So we're tracking students much earlier. We know it's a problem. We know it's expensive, so we are working on that.
Okay, but the $1.4 million, though, can you give me a number? Because at this point, we would have been paying the first couple quarters, the first half year, for those kids that are out of district. So it's $1.4 million. I mean, I'm just trying to find out. Maybe it's only $100,000 of that $1.4 million. I don't know.
Right now, the budget as presented by the school committee has a 0.53% increase from last year. That's the general operational budget, which amounts to about $328,000. That's all the increases in the operational budget. So you may have increases in tuition, but we reduced 18 staff members to get it down to general fund. When you're looking at the overall budget, it's really the recognition of the additional money that comes in from the ESSER funding.
Okay, and I do appreciate that. But there isn't, back in December, you gave me approximately 210 total students from charter schools to everything. So all I'm trying to find out, this $1.4 million, and you just knocked off about $400,000 with operational. Maybe we're paying that much more to other districts. So that leaves $1 million. Just trying to find out, did we lose 20 kids, 30 kids? Maybe we didn't lose anyone. I'm just trying to find out where that 210 number is now.
I'm not sure where the $1.4 million is coming from, and maybe that's where I'm getting.
Okay, yeah, it's right here. Under services, fiscal year 22, you show $11,569,000. For fiscal year 23, adopted $12,964,000. It's right here in these things. You can get back on that. I'm not trying to trap you
I
here.
can always go to you. If you may be looking at the total budget condensed. There it is. Okay, so those are services total, and so that is the. Let me look at that now.
Well, I'm not going to make you chase through pages here, but just if you could come back for Monday,
Yeah, sure, I can get that for you now, and if you want to talk to me after. The majority of, I can tell you right now, $500,000 is transportation.
That's always been part of the services budget,
Yeah.
but is that the increase
That's a $500,000 increase.
or just the out-of-district kids?
That's a combination of both. So in-district, out-of-district. In-district went up 4% this year.
Okay, well, let's maybe see if we could get all I'm trying to figure out is how many more kids maybe at Charahoe, Narragansett, Met, North Kingstown, that's all. All right. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Rory, if I might, I'm just seeking to clarify that question a little bit. So the number of out-of-district students currently is at 210, is that correct? What is your,
Correct.
okay, what is your projection for next year currently?
I didn't have that in front of me. What we did is we actually did an analysis of the high school looking at students that are actually graduating out, which we have a huge kind of graduates, and they actually polled the districts and really see who's coming in, and they're making a huge effort to bring students back in. We really based it on their projections, which is really more realistic than just using an average.
Okay.
We can get back to you.
So right now you're still working on projections for how many students will be going out of district for next year.
Yeah, I know that the high schools really tried to talk to Ride about a stop date of when these kids can come. It's a rolling,
Right.
it's rolling enrollment. It's really, we can say what it is today, tomorrow it can change. What we know now is not what we're going to know in the end of June, and it's not what we're going to know September 1.
Thank you.
Just to follow up on that, so from what I hear that you just said, you have a large exiting senior class of out-of-district tuitions, right?
Yes.
So that total is 210. When that drops off, if you picked up the lowest number and brought it forward, is it more than 210, or is it less?
I don't want to say something that I'm not accurate with, so I'd have to really look at the data, and I can get the breakdown, whether it's CTE, whether it's charter. Have that information right in front of me.
Because 210 divided by 4 is about 50, 50, and 50, but if that senior class is 75, what are the other freshmen out of district, sophomore out of district, and junior?
Yeah,
Yeah.
bring it for Monday.
Oh, Monday? Perfect. Jim, is that okay for Monday? I don't know where you are. So,
Anyone else like to come up and speak?
it's actually, Doral, it's nice to have it in 3 pieces because we can follow it much more easily. The human brain, you know.
All right. Did you hear that, guys? Multiple times. And you guys only give me 3 minutes of whack, so, but, you should think about it. Okay, so the school district, part of their plan going forward to the strategic plan is to emphasize STEM, and I don't know if you do STEAM also, but science-based curriculum. And the basis for, in my opinion, the basis for any science-based curriculum is mathematics. Mathematics is down below there, and it kind of holds the whole process up. Our students, from the 2019 to the 2021 RICAS exam and SAT exams, we had a 44% decrease in the number of students who met or exceeded the standards. That was the 9th highest percentage in the state of Rhode Island. Now, in this budget, I think there's 2, I don't know what you call them, a math interventionist. I guess that's a person who's really good at math, and they come in and they kind of go around and help people. Okay, here's the problem. So that 44% drop meant that we had 900 students. We had 200 students in grades 3 through 8, 200 students who were in the bottom section who couldn't, so they scored between 440 and 469. They need big-time help. Their parents should have been contacted. One of the problems in the state is the fact that these scores don't come out until school has started the next year. So we had 700 kids who were in the partially met expectations group, and from grades 3 to 8. So that's 900 students out of like 1150. But we had students that were promoted from our elementary schools to Broad Rock, but the scores weren't in yet. So they left for their new school, and the math teachers over there, they didn't have a clue. I think the school district, you should get together with every school district in the state and tell RIDE that those numbers have to come out before school starts. Those numbers should come out no later than the middle of August. Because otherwise these kids go to the next school, and if they crash and burned at 4th grade and they're going to 5th grade, they really need to do 4th grade over again, not 5th grade, because mathematics is a cumulative subject. You can't do advanced algebra unless you know how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, fractions, and all the rest of it. All right, so this gentleman here was talking about the percentage increase in our cost. So you have this 1445 you have for 3 years, but here's what happened. Because you didn't tell the school district to reduce their budget by the number of students they were losing year after year, that we've done for 20 years now. In the 2021 school year, our cost per student went up 8.2%. This year, it went up 10%. Cost per student went up 10% this year. And right now, if you don't do anything to what you're looking at here tonight, it's going to go up another 8%. To over $27,000. That's an unsustainable trajectory. If you want to fix our schools, if you really want to fix our school buildings, you can't have that anymore. Now, over there in East Greenwich.
Doral, just want to make you aware, you are over the 5 minutes again. So if you could sort
Okay,
of...
I might be able to just wrap this right up. Okay, so over there in East Greenwich, so we're going to have $27,000 per student. East Greenwich, this coming fall, $18,000 per student. Same thing in Barrington, $18,000. So that's $9,000 per student more here in South Kingstown. And it's all due to excess people working here. Because all this money that we send out to other school districts, that won't change until our schools get better, until our students' scores get better, until we start to have 4- and 5-star schools. Because then people say, gee, we want our kids to be here. Okay, and lastly, anybody? Okay. All right, so if if we had a school budget that was somewhere near what East Greenwich has, the tax rate would be $8.30, not $11.
Gerald, you're well over. If you just could keep it concise in this conclusion here.
Yep, this is it. I'm wrapping it right up. Right, so the first year that you held it at 1445, that was the year 2019-20. If you had used this state law that says you can calculate your contribution from your tax contribution by a per student basis, in 2020 you could have said to the school district, you need to take $1.8 million off your budget. You didn't do it. This year, this past year, 2021, 2 years ago, you could have told them you could take $2.6 million off your budget. You didn't do it. This year, that number is over $3 million that they could have taken off the budget. You didn't do it. So here's my thing. You guys need to tell the school committee and the administration to go back and crunch their numbers and drop a bunch of money, because if you don't, I'm going to be passing around for signatures this petition here to take $3 million off of this budget in May.
Thank you, Doral. Anyone else here like to speak?
I'd like to say.
Yeah, go ahead, Jess.
I just feel the need to clarify some of what Joel just said regarding RICAS testing and math testing scores and children getting lost and pulled behind because of poor testing scores and not being picked up until the following year. And Joel, I'm not sure if you're aware of the RTI process. RTI is response to intervention. Math interventionists largely run this program. When it comes to the math scores, our children are not being pushed ahead into the next year without data regarding where they're at. Kids are offered multiple entry points to the curriculum. Not every grade takes RICAS, so we can't rely on that to push our kids ahead or to pass them into the next grade. Our kids aren't being lost because of bad test scores, and I just need to make that very clear for parents who might be listening, who might be worried because of those comments. I do appreciate your concern. They're valid concerns. We want our kids to be successful, but our kids are not getting lost because of RICAS test scores. They're being picked up in other ways, and they're being serviced, I would hope, and I do believe, appropriately to address any differences in their learning abilities. I just want to make that clear for parents who might be listening, who may be concerned about those comments. So I appreciate your concern. I just want to clarify.
Go ahead, Paula.
So, can you hear me? So I just want to kind of piggyback off of what Ms. Rose said. So what we're seeing today with learning loss and expenses is in the extra help that we have is something that has been going on for a long time. And the reason why it isn't decreasing is because there has really, it needs an overhaul. The whole school district needs an overhaul. And what I mean by that is we need somebody that, like a superintendent, that's going to come in and look at the whole, how to fix our district and how to fix the learning gaps and how to decrease the FTEs, the long-time employee, full-time employees, sorry, and until we can do that, the budget isn't going to go down. We are not going to be able to decrease our budget until we have the district, our programs, our schools, where we need them to be. This didn't just happen overnight. This stuff has been going on for a very long time. And it's just fortunate that us, this school committee here, you know, we're left to try and do the work that needs to be done to get us there. And, you know, I take offense when, you know, people come to the podium and they say, the school committee. Some of us are sitting here for the first time. And nothing happens overnight. We've only been here for a year and a half, and we have 2.5 years to go. And in that time, I hope that we can get us a little bit more closer to where we need to be so that we don't have to come in here and ask for an increase. We can come in here, or the next school board can come in here and proudly say that they have decreased the budget to potentially that 40 million that Dora's talking about. But you can't do that overnight. It's going to take a lot of work. And it's going to probably take 2 or 3 more school committee boards after us. Hopefully, we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. Any other words from the members? Deb?
Oh, Dora, on your
Doral.
way. It's Dora can come, that's fine. I'll just talk for the 10 seconds that he's walking up. So I just wanted to say, this may be the last time, or there's only 2 more meetings with Dr. Pilata, and I wanted to say thank you for your service to the community. You came when we needed leadership. You provided a steady hand. Like Paula references, there's a lot of things to fix, and I just want to thank you publicly for all your hard work. Very calm person, and a lot of work around you got done, and you didn't be distracted by anything else. I just want to say thank you so much for coming. I know you're only here for a short time. We have a new superintendent, but I just want to thank you.
Doral will allow you to come up one more time to speak, but this is not an exchange between people of the public and members up here. But could you please keep it concise if you could and not go over the 5 minutes?
All right, so I heard what you're saying, Ms. Whitford. But what we've done here for the last ton of years is kick the can down the road. The $15 million I'm talking about this year of what looks like excess compensation for excess people, this is not the first year. This is like the 20th year that that's happened here. If you don't use the per pupil rule that's in the state law to drop the amount of money that transfer from the town, it's never going to happen. That $6 million that I was talking about that we need to come off of the budget so that we can fix our schools and maybe build a new high school, that's $6 million a year for 25 years. We can't wait for 2 to 3, 4 years from now when that building opens up. It's too late, because then all that extra $6 million, even if the town, the voters approve it, it's all on their backs. It's got to come out of your budget. It has to start this year. You cannot kick this can down the road again. Please, do not do that.
Torald, so months ago, I can't remember when we had the budget meeting in January, there were many unknowns that the school committee couldn't really present a lot of clear facts about because you hadn't passed the redistricting plan, you hadn't begun to work on all of these issues before you. Some pieces of the puzzle seem to be clearer. They might not be in place, but you have a plan. We don't know what you'll realize from the moving of the elementary students out of Wakefield and just retaining it as a preschool. There may be savings there. There may be ways that you can realize other things. I hear what the community says. I hear Mr. Follett, who said it's hard to pay attention, and he says exactly what I say all the time. People are going about their lives trusting that we do the right thing by them. It's hard to pay attention, it's hard to be in the weeds, and we, as elected officials, need to be doing our homework and doing that for them. So he actually says what I say all the time. We need to act responsibly, we need to listen to what people are saying and make adjustments. While I do hear that change is coming, I also hear from the community that it's hard to reconcile a continual decline of students, yet the budget is the same or goes up. So I don't know the answer to that. That's sort of a rhetorical question. I see all sides of it, but I always hold in my mind that there are people struggling to pay their bills and figure it out, so we need to do best by them. So that's where I am.
Thank you, Deb. Any other thoughts from the members up here? Just give one last opportunity. Anyone like to speak? Now is your time. If not, if there's things you haven't said but you come up with later, there's an opportunity on Monday. Well, at the same time, 7 p.m., we'll have a public hearing.
I just would like, Raquel, I know that you've explained this to us before, but, across the state, it's an aging population. Student populations are declining municipality after municipality. We don't hear stories about municipalities using this maintenance of effort to decrease school budgets around the state anywhere. It's because it's very difficult to do, as I understand. So could you explain, first off, I think there's just technical things like you have to have a certain number of students in a classroom if you're offering it in a school. But explain some of the challenges with that idea of using the maintenance of effort to decrease the school budget.
Okay, when Zach was here, we actually spoke to RIDE about this. So that has never been done. It has never been done. And why that is when you're looking at the calculation of maintenance of effort, which right now is you must give the school department the exact amount that you gave them last year. Or you can calculate it on a per pupil basis. That's one part of the calculation. That says, and it's not just per pupil, it's a mathematical calculation taking two variables that they give you and saying, okay, here's the number, and number of students X, number of students X. That is the maximum amount that you can reduce. Then you have to go through what it is, a review of expenditures. And you must meet the BEP. So you cannot reduce below the BEP. So when you're looking at a budget like that, the majority of our expenses are salary and benefits, which cannot be changed because they're contractual agreements. We are not able to reduce out-of-district tuition or anything with special education, which is the second biggest driver of the budget. We must transport students. We must pay out-of-district tuitions. We must meet maintenance of effort, which regards to facilities. All of that is contained either in law or BEP. So there isn't much wiggle room. I will say that Gina and I were on a call today with RIDE. They're starting to do audits of BEP. This is the time, we've talked about it before, where they're going to release the data. It's coming very, very soon. The data is going to be for all districts based on the uniform charter accounts. They're hiring, I think, someone from Brown University that's going to go start looking at the data and comparing it to make sure you're meeting the BEP. So people will be able to see that data and understand more about what is required, not just the calculation of revenue, but also the need of expenses that we're mandated to provide.
Thank you. Just one other comment. You know, it's been 25 years now since I was a student in SK, and it was a wonderful school system at the time. Couldn't be happier with the education I got there. I don't know how things have changed. I haven't been in one of those classrooms in a long time. I'd like to believe that our schools are still very high quality. I think there are rankings that show us as still high quality. I know we've come down in some regards in terms of testing and whatnot. And I don't think it's purely a matter of how much we spend per pupil, what the outcomes are. You know, it could go lower and scores might increase. It could go higher and scores might increase. I tend to think that what leads to higher scores are really engaged and joyful teachers who love to come to work, don't have a lot of mandates that they don't feel like they can meet in the classroom, and students who are full of curiosity and want to learn. I think those are probably the two main ingredients. And where are we falling short here in South Kingstown and why? I think those are important questions, and I believe that some of the negativity around the schools, the conversation that happens in this room or at the school committee, the general notion that swirls around our country like teachers are the enemy or indoctrinating kids or whatever is out there, are leading to a less joyful profession in teaching. And that's terrible. I think it's one of the most important jobs that people can do. And I hope that here in SK we can tell our teachers how much we appreciate the tough job that they do and support them in meaningful ways, whether it's funding that they need to provide that education or just an atmosphere where we're not attacking them.
Thank you, Abel. Any other thoughts from council members? Oh, yes, Mr. Superintendent.
I think there's been a lot of good information presented this evening by the public, and many of the numbers and statistics are correct. We're not going to argue about that. I think the important thing is that we've taken the first giant step. We've cut 18.3 positions out of this budget for going forward, and what's more critically important is that the school committee took a position and created a 3-year plan that 2 schools will close over a 3-year period, and the school district will be reconfigured where it will make more sense to people, and hopefully that's going to reduce the cost going forward. So I think we're headed in the right direction. As somebody said, I don't think you can do that overnight. That's something that's built up over 20 years, but I think we did take the first step over the last 7 months by cutting several positions. If you recall, the initial request that came in from the staff was approximately $2 million, and we cut that by $1.5 million. We originally came to you and requested an additional $517,000, and you level funded us, and that's fine. We can deal with that. We'll balance the budget. So we've got that $517,000 number down to about $350,000. So we're moving in the right direction, and we will balance the budget over the next couple of months. The other thing that's critically important is that redistricting will take place next school year, and we're waiting for that information to come in. We'll have that information by April 26th. There'll be a report out of that information. We may still have a reduction in staff at that point if those statistics prove out. The other things that we really don't have control over is the cost of out-of-district tuitions. The only way you try to solve that is create programs within the district where kids will stay in the district. So the curriculum will take care of that going forward. So I think there's a lot of good positive things that take place, but I also agree that we have a way to go, and it's not going to happen overnight. But I think in the process we've We've been transparent with everything, especially with the numbers. And, you know, I wish the next superintendent all the success in the world to pick this up and keep moving it forward. And the last thing I would say is that we will be able to have a better prediction of our budgets over the next 3 years because of the plan that the school committee voted on. And that's going to be an advantage to the town council also. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Any comments from school committee members? Kate?
I just want to follow up with what Dr. Pilata is saying. This particular board right here, the makeup, we're going, 6, 7 months, along with Dr. Pilata, and we've had Raquel for 18 or so months. As was stated, this was 20 years in the making, and I can't believe where we've gotten in this period of time with the makeup of the people that we're working on right now. This is the first time we've had a transparent budget. We've never had a line item budget. We have a line item budget, public. Everyone can see it, everyone can go through it, and we can all look to see what the infamous sticky notes and dry erase markers down to that level. We can see what is being spent. And we have a ways to go. None of us are sitting up here saying, wow, look at this is great, let's stay where we are. Dorold, I agree with almost everything you say. Paula and I were just meeting with members from the Johnny Cake Center discussing how we can stop kids from, like, why are kids moving up if they haven't learned what they need to learn in order to move forward? But you know it's not going to help them, cutting $3 million from the current budget, laying off 100 staff members right now, coming out of COVID with the mental health of everybody in this room, never mind in our children's classrooms, our teachers. So while I agree with what the general sentiment, we're working on it. Sorry, I have my own little timer for myself. But we're working on it. We're diligently working on it. We've been honored to have Dr. Pilata helping lead the way for everything you just said, Deb. He was a calm, steady force. You know, it's like we took a ship that was upside down, we tipped it up right, and then we started to kind of row, and we're finally going in the right direction. And we just need to get there. And we do have a 2 to 3 year plan. And we have 7 buildings. We shouldn't have 7 buildings. We should have had 6 buildings or 5 buildings. But we're going to get there. We just can't do it tonight. And I appreciate all the information because you're not wrong, but we just need time to get there.
Thank you, Kate. Any other comments from school committee members? Deb?
I think that the concern people might have is if you are going to then quickly realize millions in savings because of this change in the schools, that money be held and used in a responsible way. So if you have a windfall, for Dorold, $3 million windfall because we've redistricted and we've taken those 9-person elementary school classrooms and they're gone, and we've shrunk the FTEs, and you realize that you hold on to that or return it to the town so that it can be used in a responsible way. And when I say responsible, for the plans that we need to do for the facilities, for the, you know, you get a windfall, you don't go out and, you know, buy junk, you invest it back. So I think that I come from a place where if you had that extra money, the community would want to say, the $85 million bond doesn't become $100 million, you use that money instead. Or I just feel like that's what people, how they operate in their own lives, and so that a very transparent school committee, it does look very different. All the meeting is very different because the players are different, but using the money that you would realize to be, I guess, well spent. I think in the past it's been, let's bring back favorite teachers, let's bring back this. It can't be that. I look at the schools and think that's where the money needs to go. It can't always fund teachers and keep the FTEs. It has to go to fixing the problem, because that goes back to why those eighth graders are looking at other high schools. That's where we're at, and it's a marketing thing, and it comes down to what the schools look like. As much, I believe that the teachers do a great job, but we keep saying this, the inside of Columbia Street needs to match, the inside of Columbia Street and the outside of Columbia Street need to match. The teaching and the quality of the schools needs to match. Right now, I think I've recently been at the high school with my children, and it has been excellent. I can't imagine in the last 3 years those teachers have all gone away. They're still there doing great things. We just need to fix Columbia Street to be the gem and attract and retain our own students. But it comes down to that $3 million. Whatever you realize as savings, the community is looking to see what you do. And that comes from layering good, transparent, trustful decisions that we can say, yep, we can count on you to do right by us again.
Thank you, Deb. Any final words from council members? I'll just say I'll acknowledge the good work that this body has done. Personally, I think you've made some good decisions. You've acknowledged the circumstances, understand that changes had to be made, and effectively have made them or are working on them. I'd also like to congratulate you on finding a new superintendent. That's a huge plus moving forward, getting that done. We look forward to working with that person, getting to know them, and building a good working relationship as we work through budgets in the future. But that's going to bring us to the end of this meeting. We appreciate everyone's time. Again, if there's anything you didn't get out tonight, we have a meeting on Monday for a public hearing, same time, 7 p.m. And we will be voting to enact the budget on Monday, April 25th. And at that time, we'll consider any amendments at that time. So thank you again for your time, and have a good night. Do you need it?